you might as well buy a big chunk of the network so that when they get there, you're the beneficiary of it. And I think Trump is a pretty good business person, and this is an economic brilliant stroke. So I think that they get it, they understand it, and we will see the U.S. Move very, very aggressively into Bitcoin at some point in time.
Hey guys, welcome to Everyday Finance. It is now official that Bitcoin has entered the geopolitical stage, and Michael Saylor believes that this could be a turning point, not only for cryptocurrency, but also for global finance. Although the United States government has been viewed for a long time as being skeptical of digital assets, it may actually be one of the largest holders of Bitcoin in the world. Large quantities of Bitcoin have been covertly seized by government agencies such as the Department of Justice and the Internal Revenue Service, IRS, through legal proceedings over the course of the past decade. On the other hand, the government is now adopting a different strategy rather than selling off those assets. Enter the concept of the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve, which is a concept that transforms Bitcoin from being regarded as a digital contraband to being recognized as a strategic financial asset, similar to gold. This indicates a significant shift in the United States' perspective on cryptocurrency, which goes from viewing it as a threat to viewing it as a tool for protecting national wealth and protecting against economic instability on a global scale. Saylor is of the opinion that the door is now wide open for broader institutional adoption, owing to the fact that Donald Trump is once again in office. The demand for Bitcoin is increasing, institutions are investing in the cryptocurrency, and the price of Bitcoin is starting to reflect this momentum, which is pushing it back towards all-time highs. In the event that this pattern continues, it is possible that we are on the verge of Bitcoin's most decisive breakout to date. However, this is not merely another bull run. It is possible that this event marks the beginning of Bitcoin's mainstream integration into national policy, institutional portfolios, and the global financial system. Let's listen, Saylor.
I do, actually. I think that Bitcoin is emerging as the world's reserve capital network. It is the dominant capital network of the world. So the dollar is the world's reserve currency. And you recall, I said money is currency if it's short-term medium exchange. It's capital if it's long-term store of value. And if I wanted to send $1 billion from one point on the earth to the other, right, the choice is ship $1 billion of gold, move $1 billion building, or send Bitcoin, or send $1 billion of paintings. You can see paintings aren't fungible. They don't make good money. A building isn't portable. It doesn't make good money. Gold, gold failed as a capital network 400 years ago when the King of Spain tried to send a bunch of gold to the Netherlands to finance his army. It got blocked by Queen Elizabeth. She bankrupted the Spanish army, and that's why the Netherlands is Protestant and not Catholic today. So it's pretty obvious. Bitcoin is a great capital network, and it's a great capital asset. It makes sense for the U.S. to own it, because if the U.S. owns that capital network, then anybody that wants to sell their Russian real estate or their Chinese natural gas fields is going to buy Bitcoin. So if you know where everybody's going, if you know everybody in the rest of the world is going to Bitcoin, and if you know everybody in the 20th century is going to trade their 20th century assets for 21st century assets, you might as well buy a big chunk of the network so that when they get there, you're the beneficiary of it. And I think Trump is a pretty good business person, and this is an economic brilliant stroke. So I think that they get it, they understand it, and we will see the U.S. Move very, very aggressively into Bitcoin at some point in time. I think a lot of different routines work for different people. It depends on your culture and where you live. But right now, my daily routine would be to be up with the sunlight. So when the sun rises, I'm moving make sure I start the day with a bit of exercise. Then study and absorb what's going on in the marketplace, and then start to engage. And I've got a bunch of business, projects and activities I'm always working on, and then I've got a bunch of communication. So I think that if you combine that with focus, I would say the principles of success are, focus, figure out what you're going to do. I think it's more important. The world wants you to be really good at something. It doesn't want you to be decent at 100 different things. And I think that, I don't think the world wants my opinion on the 99 other things. If you're not the foremost expert on the one thing, and if you're the top 0.1% on 100 things, well, that means there's like 10,000 people that have a better insight than you have. That makes you number 9,999. And the world is getting to the point where it really wants to go to the opinion of the top 1, 2, or it might take 3 opinions. Maybe it can deal with 3 or 4 opinions. It doesn't care about the opinion of the 9,000th best person in something, and we're all talking to each other. So I think laser-like focus on what you're doing, and my general view is you can discuss 100 things with your circle of trust, your friends and your family. You can engage in 10 things, as part of your vocation to make a living, but you ought to speak about one thing. Right? I focus upon what is it the world needs to know about this one thing that I'm focused on. And I stay in my lane and I let other people be the experts on all of the other things, because the world's a big place. It's very complicated. And I don't want to dilute my message, distract my followers, or dissipate my energy.
According to Michael Saylor, Bitcoin is not something that can be traded. Rather, it is something that can be owned, much like prime real estate. His point of view is that you should leverage Bitcoin rather than sell it. Build on it, rent it out, and use it to fund new businesses and endeavors. In the context of the digital economy, it transforms into a valuable asset. Now, for the very first time, it seems that the government of the United States of America is adopting the same mentality. As a result of official support and an expanding reserve strategy, Bitcoin is transitioning from a speculative play to a strategic pillar of future economic planning. Bitcoin is no longer merely a technological asset or hedge. Rather, it is in the process of becoming digital national property. This represents a significant psychological and structural shift. Because of this, a plethora of opportunities become available. Given that Bitcoin is increasingly being regarded as an official asset class, it has the potential to open up new avenues for lending, investment, and the development of infrastructure. Bitcoin could soon be used by businesses in the same way that they use real estate or treasury bonds, because it can be used as collateral, as capital, or as a foundation for innovation. If this pattern continues, Bitcoin may move from the periphery of finance to the center of public policy and national economic strategy. It may become entwined with everything from the balance sheets of the government to the foundation of the digital economy. Watch more clips.
I think there are 3 reasonable ways to acquire Bitcoin, and the right way depends upon who you are, what stage of life you're in, where you live. Also, whether you're acquiring it for yourself, your family, or your company, or your government, or institution. And so if you're an institutional investor and you're acquiring it for your charity or your city or your government or your company, and you just want the economic exposure, you might just buy the spot ETF. And there are spot ETFs like IBIT from BlackRock or FBTC. And every country in the world, right, there are ETFs in Europe, and there are ETFs in Brazil, and there are ETFs in Germany and Australia and the like. And for some people, what they should hold is they should hold Bitcoin wrapped as a security. Now that's that. If you're a senior citizen and you just kind of want it in your retirement account or something, and you want to be invested 2% in it or 3% in it, in that particular case, that might also make sense because you just pick up the phone, call your broker and say, just buy me a bunch of this thing. And you put the phone down after 10 seconds and it's done. And your bank, JP Morgan or Wells Fargo or whatever, Morgan Stanley, they've just done it for you and it took 10 seconds. And my 86-year-old father is not going to actually self-custody, change jurisdictions, move to another country, and run in a hardware wallet. So for a group of people, that's the right call. For another group of people, they should buy the Bitcoin on an exchange that they trust, probably a regulated exchange. It depends on whether you're in London, or whether you're in France, or whether you're in Australia or Brazil or the US. Normally pick a regulated, trustworthy entity in whatever country that you have domicile. And then you buy Bitcoin and you buy the commodity. And then I would say for many people, it's okay just to put it into cold storage or put it with a custodian they trust. Many people custody with Fidelity, some custody with Coinbase. There are large banks in Brazil like Bank Itaú. So there are other regulated custodians that people trust. If you've already got an account with them and you trust them, then that would be simple. Standard Chartered Bank is another example of a regulated custodian. And then there's a third group of people that would want to take self-custody. And if you're capable of handling your own, if you're an adult, I would say you should be probably more than 18. Maybe you should be less than 75. Not because I don't think senior citizens can do it. I just think that their eyesight's not that good, right? Like at some point, if your eyes aren't that good, you have a hard time reading the hardware wallet and you struggle with that, then maybe you would think about it. But if you're pretty facile with a computer and you're facile with a phone and you're capable of managing your own assets and if you have a need to, then you should take self-custody. And so another way to say is the more uncertain your future and the longer your future is, the more important it is for you to own Bitcoin and not own the security version of it. If you were sitting in Lebanon or you were in the middle of Africa and, my checklist would be, well, do you trust the bank? No. Do you trust the government? No. Do you trust the currency? No. Do you think you might need to change countries or cross the border with all your money? Yes. In that case, it's a no-brainer. You should have the Bitcoin in self-custody or you should have it in a custodian that you trust outside of that country. But, at the point where you're like 85 years old and you're not leaving your living room, for the rest of your life, at that point, then probably you take a different view because you're different. And companies, like my company, MicroStrategy, we hold Bitcoin because we want to be able to move the Bitcoin between any custodian in the world or take self-custody. And when you do that as a commodity, there's no taxable event. So you're keeping optionality. If I needed to put it in London or I needed to move it between 100 different custodians, or if I wanted to take self-custody, I can do that without a taxable event. I wouldn't hold the security because right now securities law in the US and the treatment of Bitcoin ETFs is you would have to sell the ETF, take a taxable capital gain, and then move the cash and then repurchase somewhere else. And that's a inefficiency of the current market structure. It might be cured if we get to in-kind create and redemption of Bitcoin ETFs, but right now it's an inefficiency. So I think if you think you need to move the asset around, you're advantaged and you have better property rights holding the commodity, the pure property, rather than holding the security.
It is becoming increasingly difficult to ignore the cracks that exist in the traditional financial system. A significant number of people now consider it to be antiquated, excessively centralized, and manipulative, which has led to an increased interest in alternatives such as Bitcoin. Bitcoin is no longer merely appealing from an ideological standpoint. Rather, it is becoming more practical and even strategic. Michael Saylor asserts that the momentum is significantly shifting in a rapid manner. Major corporations are beginning to investigate the possibility of incorporating Bitcoin into their balance sheets, either by using spot exchange-traded funds, ETFs, or by purchasing Bitcoin directly. As a result of their extensive connections with both infrastructure and financial institutions, major players in the technology industry, such as Apple, Amazon, and Google, are in an especially advantageous position to move quickly. Without wallets or custody problems, exchange-traded funds, ETFs, eliminate the operational complexity, leaving only clean, regulated exposure. What's taking place is not a hypothetical situation. The cryptocurrency known as Bitcoin is already making its way into business models, government planning, and broader visions of how the digital economy might proceed in the future. Bitcoin is increasingly being regarded as more than just an asset. Rather, it is being regarded as a foundation, even as the old system feels more strain. We are not late. Rather, we are early, is the central message that Saylor conveys. The real shift is just getting started at this point. Those individuals who have a better understanding of the role that Bitcoin will play in the future financial landscape will be better prepared when that forthcoming future arrives. Thanks for watching.